Let us chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. Why are all the cameras off today? I'm seeing no one. It's like I'm speaking to myself. Okay. Right. So, we are going to be speaking or discussing rather about death. How fantastic. Right. So, Marnanusati. I think even with our meditation, we haven't really done Marnanusati. Maybe once or so, but we've not really pursued Marnanusati. So I thought it would be good to sort of explore that as well. So Marnanusati. Now, Marnanusati, the original word that we see in the text is Marana Sati. Later on, we come to hear the word or read the word Marnanusati, but the original term that we see within the text is Marana Sati. Now, what is Marana? The classification or the definition of what is defined as death within the texts falls on what is the Jivita Indriya, the disturbing of Jivita Indriya is then classified as Marana. Right? The disturbing of the Jivita Indriya is classified as Marana. To those of you who are unsure about what Jivita Indriya is, Jivita Indriya is the life force. Right? The life force. This life force is supported by a number of energies. What are these energies? When we are born now as humans and beings who have had the privilege of being born with an able body and mind, where the faculties are working properly at birth. Right? Later on, as we age, of course, these faculties, because of physical conditioning, can weaken. However, if we are born able-bodied with the ability to use mind and body as it should or as it should be used, then possibly we have been or we have come to be by the power of or by the fact of having a trihetuka patisanti. Right? A trihetuka patisanti. A trihetuka patisanti is a rebirth consciousness or the consciousness that we have died from our previous birth was a consciousness rooted in alobha, adosa, amoha. Hence, these three good roots, we know that there are 6 roots. Alobha, adosa, amoha, the 3 good roots, condition or come to support the rebirth process. Right? The Patisandhi process, by which we now gain exit from our previous birth, right? And now gain rebirth in a suiting place, within a suiting place, parallel to the energy or suiting the energy that we die, according to the Buddha. Is that clear, everyone? Right? So, Marana is then anything that disturbs his life force. So one of these factors is, because of the karma that we have come to be. Where does that karma stem from? It stems from the patisandhi chitta, or the patisandhi karma that comes to support the rebirth process. Is that clear? Right? The rebirth process. The other is the physical conditions. The physical conditions. Right? Now, for example, let us say that we are born into a position that is conducive to a healthy life. Right? Conducive to a healthy life, where we have access to clean sanitary facilities, clean water and food, right? Medicines, all of that. A developed country as well, so you have good access to healthcare as well, right? So all of these things would then allow a being to live a healthy life. However, all of a sudden, because of a social problem, even a political problem, something can go drastically wrong. Let us say a bomb of some sorts, or some sort of a bioweapon of sorts that could literally affect everyone in that country, right? So the physical conditions, we might be born with a trihetuka pratisandhi into a place of comfort with access to healthy standards of living. However, this can change, right? This can change. So the environment also then negates what or how this process would happen. So when we use the word marana, we are relating to two types of marana, which is kala marana and akala marana, right? Kala marana and akala marana stemming from, or kala marana or akala marana, which leads to the disruption of Jivitindriya. Now that is your point, everyone, right? That is the sentence you must remember during your meditation. The disruption of Jivita Indriya, right? Is there anyone who requires me to explain what Jivita Indriya is further?
Bhante, I would like to
Yes,
offer.
of course. No worries. Jiviti Indriya, now Jiviti Indriya, we said, stems from the Patisandhi karma, right? The karma by which presents itself at the moment of death, so that we, through that karma, gain rebirth into the positions and lives that we have today. This has been a cycle that we would go through. Now, Jivita Indriya is that life force sustained when we have a Trihetuka Patisandhi. That Trihetuka Patisandhi, or that rebirth consciousness, has a certain force, a power, isn't it? Right? A certain quality. Now, let us say, what can we think about? Okay, what is a good example? Um, okay, if we take the quality of water, right? Now, water, right? It can, we can, we can sort of take water from a certain place and call it water. However, the quality of water, the taste of water, what is within that water can vary, isn't it? Right. Just So, it can be a trihetuka karma. However, the force, the power, the quality of that trihetuka karma can vary. Is that clear? Right? Now let us say we are quite aware. We are socially aware. Right? We have a certain amount of compassion towards seeing the suffering of people, right? I mean, whether you are a practicing meditator or not, when we look at the world, we see suffering. We see that not all people have comfort in their lives. This is a no-brainer, isn't it? Right? However, now let us say some see suffering while suffering themselves in seeing this suffering. Some others see this suffering in a way through yonso mansikara, right attention, where this suffering you have compassion. It doesn't affect the compassion that you have at all, right? However, this suffering that is in it prompts insight in your mind, right? See the quality, right? This quality of the patisanti chitta would determine the quality of life that we would be reborn into, right? Quality of life that we would be reborn into. One of those qualities is the life force. How long am I going to live? Now, as an example, the lifespan, if I am correct, the lifespan of a person living in London is around 100, I think. Isn't it? 95, 100. I think it's 100. Right? Now, maybe because the ambulances are quite slow, maybe it has gone down drastically. However, I think about 2 years ago, it was 100. Right? Maybe it has gone down now. Right? Now, a person can live in comfort in London, right, and have a lifespan of 100. A person, because we most all of us are from Sri Lanka, a person can live with a certain amount of with comfort in Colombo, right? But maybe Colombo lifespan is not 100. It is lesser, right? Now see, both of these people live in comfort, but in two different cities, right? That is a part of that force, right? That is a part of that energy that we form. What is suiting, right? How long do we have to live? Now, there are interruptions to this, which we will talk about, right? That is Jivita Indriya. Now, if we go a little bit more deeper, Jivita Indriya keeps the mind. There is a physical Jivita Indriya, there's a mental Jivita Indriya, right? A physical Jivita Indriya, a mental Jivita Indriya. What we are talking about predominantly is the mental Jivita Indriya. Why? Manopubbangama dhamma, right? When the consciousness, now we are talking about marana. Marana happens in this life. If you're talking specifically in this life, marana happens when the mind leaves this body, isn't it? Right? When the mind leaves this body, that is explained in the Pali term is eka bhava pariyapanna. That means leaving one life, one existence. The being just moves on, right? But what are we leaving behind? We are leaving behind absolutely everything belonging to that existence, isn't it? We are leaving behind all of our loved ones. We are leaving behind everything that we have worked for within that existence. We are leaving behind our titles, our badges of honor. We are leaving behind everything that we have done, the good and the bad, conducive to that physical body. The good and the bad, which is connected to that physical body. Do you understand? Right? Of course, please do not misunderstand when I say the good and the bad connected to the physical body. I'm not talking about the karma. The karma will be with you. But the good and bad, that is connected to the physical body. Right? Now, for example, if you are so and so, right? This so and so is this physical body. People would relate to this so and so with this physical body. When people would see your face, and if you're an important person, right, doors would automatically open for you in certain circles, isn't it? Right? So we are talking in regards to that relation towards that physical body. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Okay. So in Marananusati, is then Jivita Indriya, is Jivita Indriya clear to a certain extent? Just Jivita Indriya, its main duty remains continuity. Continuity of the mind. When that Jivita Indriya is no more, the mind will separate from the body and move on through the process of rebirth. Is that clear? Right? Up until nirvana is achieved and attained, the mind will continue to move on. That is what we believe in Buddhism as taught by the Buddha. Right? Now, Marananusati, when we say Marananusati refers, or what does Marananusati or the contemplation of Marananusati not include? The contemplation of Marananusati does not include three things, right? When we talk about Marananusati, we are only talking about the interruption of the life faculty. In Pali, life faculty is a Jivita Indriya of a single existence. Of a single existence. That is what Marana is in Marananusati or Maranasati. So what is not, or what does not come under Marananusati? One, Marananusati does not talk about the termination of suffering. Right? Marananusati does not talk about, now for example, the Arahant's termination of suffering. That is not what we are talking about here. Is that clear? Right? Kilesa Marana. Right? With the Kilesa Marana, what happens is one attains an enlightenment, and through enlightenment we then sort of remove that sense of suffering. Right? That is not what is intended. Right? Then we have Kanika Marana. What is Kanika Marana? Kanika Marana is momentary death. Momentary death. Momentary death is every moment. We know when the mind, a chitta arises, a chitta would go through the process of upada, titi and bhanga. Upada, titi, bhanga. Within that process, arising, possessing, passing away. When from the moment that it arises and then passes away, and then another chitta arises, this is momentary death. That consciousness has now died, isn't it? That specific momentary, Kanika Marana. That is not what we are talking about. Is that clear, everyone? If you have any questions, please do unmute yourself and ask, okay? Because we are going to turn this into, or the focus is we come to know what Marananusati is, what the practice is, and we're going to practice it, okay? So this is the foundation. So if you are unclear about anything, please do ask, right? So It is not talking about one, the termination of suffering. It is not talking about khanika marana or momentary death, right? Which is, in other words, a momentary dissolution of formation. Yam kisi sanskaraka dharma. If one sanskara formation arises, this formation is impermanent. But we are not talking about that death of that formation, right? And then there is death that is spoken of in a metaphorical way, which is a dead tree, right? A dead tree, a dead metal. We use this sort of word, this sort of death, in that sense also, isn't it? We are not talking about that as well. Now that would fall under the disruption of a formation, isn't it? If you would take a dead tree, the tree was once alive and now it's dead, right? It's not giving fruit, the leaves are not green, it's dried up, it's dead. So that would also come under formation. We are not talking about that either. Any questions? Right? So we are only talking about, the first part is, we are talking about the interruption to jivita indriya, the life faculty. That is what you need to remember. What are we not talking about? We are not talking about the ending of suffering. We are not talking about momentary death, right? Momentary death, which includes chitta, shaya, and kaya, momentary death of a rupa, right? Momentary death of a chitta, momentary death of a rupa. We are not talking about either one of these things. Is that clear? And we are not talking about the disruption or the ending of formations, sanskara, right, which is under that momentary death. We are not talking about that. Neither are we talking about the metaphorical death, right, meaning a dead tree, a dead metal, a dead whatever thing that we would sort of relate to using the word dead. Do you understand? Is that clear? Any questions? Any questions? No?
The metaphorical death. I couldn't catch that.
So metaphorical is the usage of language, Sujata.
Yes.
The usage of language. So we would use the word dead or death
Got
in
it.
our conversation, right?
Mm, mm.
And we would use in certain terms, or to refer to, for example, a dead tree, an inanimate object, right?
Right.
So the word, this is not the death of an inanimate object. In
Yes, I understand.
You're not
Yes.
referring to that.
Mm.
Is that clear?
Thank you, Bhante. I think I got it. Thank you.
So the only thing that we are referring to is the disruption, interruption to the jivita indriya or the life faculty. Is that clear? Right? Now, disruptions to the life faculty. Now moving on, right? Can I move on? Is that fine? Any questions? Okay. No questions, I presume. Now, there are two ways that a disruption to the life faculty can occur. One is kala marana, the other is akala marana, timely death and untimely death. Kala marana, akala marana. If a being is to die, any being, any animate being is to die, is to pass, that passing would happen because or through timely death or untimely death. Is that clear, everyone? That can happen through as a time, not through, but as timely death or untimely death. Timely death. What is timely death? Kala marana. Right? Kala marana can occur in two ways. Kala marana can happen in two ways. The exhaustion of merit. Is that clear? The exhaustion of merit and the exhaustion of the lifespan, right? The exhaustion of merit and exhaustion of lifespan, right? Now one might wonder, ඇයි අපි මෙච්චර මේ මරණය ගැන මෙතන මෙච්චර කතා කරන්නේ කියලා. This brings clarity, right? This brings clarity because as we know in Vipassana, Vitakka, initial application, sustained application, thought plays a role, right? And it is important to have yonsu mansikara. Now, what we are doing with whatever that we've been speaking is, this is a yonsu mansikara, okay? This is a yonsu mansikara. This is how we have to sort of approach the subject, or else with Marananusati, we know what happened with Marananusati during the Buddha's time. Do you remember the story where the monks killed themselves? Right? The monks literally killed themselves. Remember? Marananusati? Right? They killed themselves. Right? You know, if everything is going to come to an end, you know, this foul body, you know, also you kill me, I kill you, they killed themselves. Right? This is when a person, now if you're telling a mother, you know, who has a child to practice Marananusati, right? How does a mother practice? Which mother wants to think of the demise of their son or daughter? Right? The demise of their child. How do we maintain yonsu mansikara? That is what we are building the foundations of right now. Okay? So bear with me. Right? So, marana. Kala marana. Kala marana is of two types. Which is timely death, which happens because of two reasons: exhaustion of merit and exhaustion of the lifespan. Exhaustion of merit is a term for the kind of death that comes about as a result of the rebirth producing, or the patisandhi karma having now come to a position where its energy is now slowly coming to an end and finally ending. Do you understand? Right? That merit, the rebirth producing karmas, right? They have ripened, right? They have ripened. And now it is slowly coming to a close, right? Slowly coming to a close. The exhaustion of merit. Do you understand? Right? What is the exhaustion of a lifespan? The exhaustion of a lifespan is now owing to the time. What is the normal span of life? That is why I brought in sort of living comfortable life in Colombo, comfortable life in London. Because whatever said and done, whether in the country or where you're living does matter, right? Because that negates the quality of what you're consuming, the food that you're consuming, all of these things, right? Now, the exhaustion of the lifespan comes about, right, as the exhaustion of the normal span of life, right, allowed to a man, to a person at that specific time of life, right? Now, when the Buddha was alive, this lifespan was 120 years, right? When the Buddha was alive, the lifespan was 120 years. Now, we can see that the lifespan has reduced, right? That the lifespan has reduced. Now, even if actually maybe a month or two back, I was having a conversation with two doctors who had come for dana, and they were saying, you know, with regards to, you know, dementing when the brain gives out and, you know, all of that, that we simply live too long now, right? But what does that mean? Living too long, interesting statement. That we simply live too long, and because of that, the physical body sort of is unable to sort of carry on for that long. So it starts failing, but we live, but we live with our sort of internal systems now slowly collapsing, right? Which is interesting because we have the karma. We might be coming in with the karma, but what allows life to be, which is a whole big part of nutrition, right? Nutrition, stress, quality of life. Basically, the quality of life might be lower than what we think it might be, right? Lower than what we might think it is, but we live for 90, 100 years sometimes, but now we are failing sometimes. Some people, or even most people nowadays, the brain gives out and we are unable to sort of carry on with our memory, right? So this will also come into question here. In Kala Marana, the exhaustion of the lifespan and the exhaustion of merit, right? Two reasons. Then we have, right? Then we have Akala Marana, untimely. We will come back to this, to understand it more better, right? Untimely death is when you have merit, right? You have merit, and you also have merit, and you also have the natural lifespan allowable to a man of the time. Do you understand? Right? Is that clear? The merit and the lifespan, both is there. Right? Allowable, lifespan allowable to man at that time. If the lifespan is 30, you're not going to live for 90 years. Right? You will live up to 30 or lesser. Right? Maybe if you're really lucky, you might go above. Right? So, lifespan allowed or at the time of life and the merit, you have both of these things, but it is interrupted by a karma. Okay, is that clear? It is interrupted by a karma. What kind of karma? Now this interruption of karma, right, causes of falling from the place you are, meaning from the position of life there is a falling, right? There is a falling. Now, for example, we can talk about Venerable Mahamoggallana. Remember the story of how he passed, right? He tried to escape the murderers because this was stemming from a previous heinous crime that he had committed in getting his parents murdered, right? He did not conduct the killing, but he got people to kill, right? What happened was then, as an arahant, as a foremost, after Sariputta, Venerable Moggallana was a foremost disciple of the Buddha. However, when his time neared, these people were just running towards him out of anger, and he was surprised. What have I done? But he, with his power, miraculous power, it is said that he sort of teleported himself away. But then wherever he went, people would charge at him and try to kill him, until he sort of realized there's something funny going on here, and he sort of adverted his mind to become aware of what is actually happening, and he realized this is a past karma. Now mind you that Mahamoggallana had gone to Niraya to pay for his sins of patricide and matricide, a heinous crime, a heinous sin, for so long, which also resulted in the color of his skin at the time that he reached enlightenment as well, that last final birth for him. Everything was mature, but he had to still And he did not go to, one of those sort of lighter sort of realms of hell. He went to the hell of fire, Avicii. And he burnt 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 for so long. And still, even after that long, long time of constant burning, what happened? He still had to suffer the consequences of that act. Right. He still had to suffer the consequences of that act. And that is untimely death. In the case of Mahamogallana, he had the span of life, he had the merit, right? However, he was unable to continue. He he was murdered. He was pounded down, um, to a pulp of blood. His bones were broken. The way that he approached the Buddha to say his final or pay his final respects to the Buddha before his passing was through the little shred of energy that he had remaining, owing to his jhanic abilities and his palasamapatti, right? And his palasamapatti. That is how he came to the Buddha, paid his respects, and bid farewell to the Sangha and to the Buddha, right? So, I mean, samsara is dangerous, people, right? It's very dangerous. I mean, we do not realize how many, how severe some of these karmas are, right? So that is akala marana. So then the question that appears into my mind, and I hope it appears to you as well, is okay, when we are thinking about kala marana and akala marana, what would classify, or what would properly sort of say is kala marana, right? Now we know that people pass in their sleep, peacefully passing in their sleep. Is this kala marana or kala marana? It would be kala marana, right? But let us say now towards the end of, or towards, um, as we live, we have some sort of illness, let us say a cancer of some sorts. Is that kala marana or akala marana? A terminal illness, a kala marana or akala marana? What do we think? Kala marana or akala marana? A terminal illness. Any thoughts?
As you say, it's terminal. That means he has come to the end of the tether of the life.
Yeah, because of the illness.
Yes. So it could be Kala Marana.
It could be
Akala marana.
akala marana. Terminal illness is akala marana. Okay.
When you say terminal, I understood this way. Termination of life. That's how I got it.
Well, terminal, what I understand from the word of terminal illness is the fact that there is no saving this person. The illness has reached a stage of maturation where it will end in the termination of life, right? And disruption to the jiviti indriya, right? But the question appears: is this kala marana or akala marana? So Sujata, you would say or think for it to be kala marana or akala marana, Sujata.
When you think of that particular sickness, it could be Kala Marana.
It could be kala marana. Okay. Okay. What about the others? What do you all think? Samantha, what do you think, Samantha?
I think it's Akala marana, Bhante, because like you can get children dying of cancer at the age of 5, so they wouldn't have had their total lifespan of whatever it is, 80, 90 gone through. So it can happen untimely.
Okay, it can be untimely. Okay. Yes, with regards to a child, I think, okay, okay. And what about Udayanti? Anything, Udayanti? What do you think?
Bhante, would it depend on the age at which you get that illness?
Sure, of course. Because that is what I was thinking, Udayanti, myself. Because if now jati, jara, vyadi, marnadi, dukkha. Jati, vyadi, if you are talking about, because of aging or the process of aging. Now, for example, they say that cancerous cells exist in everyone's body, right? But these sort of cells maturing and going through a certain process, sort of where now it becomes a problem, is the problem, right? So then how do we approach, or how do we understand death? That is what I hoped we could do. So, yes, I guess age would sort of play a part. But if we go to what just Samantha said, before we go into the mature years, with regards to a baby, right, a child, with regards to a child, what if the child, um, how do we know that the child had more time to live?
Because the lifespan at that time is 70 or 80 or 90.
Okay, 70, 80 or 90. But okay, 70, 80 or 90. But what if the child didn't have merit? ජීවත් වෙන පිනක් තිබ්බේ නැත්තම්?
Then the child will pass away earlier. Because you have to have the lifespan of the time, plus you have to have the merit. If you don't have one of those, then you will die at young age.
So then if the child did not have merit, it would be Kala Marana.
Yes.
Right? It would be Kala Marana. But how do we know? Now, how do we know? Doesn't the Patisandhi process also give us a little bit of an inclination here? Because remember, Trihetuka Patisandhi, Dvihetuka Patisandhi, and Ekahetuka Patisandhi. Right? Remember the difference, the force that is created. If it is a Trihetuka Patisandhi, the force is quite powerful. That is where our limbs, our faculties are quite strong. The development process or the Janaka Karma is strong. When the Janaka Karma is strong, we will the probability that we would endure the birthing process as well as life is strong. When according to what we know of that Patisandhi, the Trihetuka, Dvihetuka, and Ekahetuka, if it is a Dvihetuka, we know that there is a strong probability of weaker bodies or mind. Where the Buddha says a Dvihetuka Patisandhi Uppattika, a person who is born out of a Dvihetuka Patisandhi, as a result of a Dvihetuka Patisandhi, is unable to attain Nirvana. Right? Apparently unable to attain Nirvana because of the weaker faculties. These faculties include the mind. Right? These faculties includes the mind. Right? And then there is Ekahetuka Patisandhi, a very weak Patisandhi, isn't it? Right? A Ekahetuka Patisandhi, there is a very unlikely, it is very unlikely that the maturation of the fetus would even reach its peak, right? Because the life force of such an organism is that weak, right? Is that weak. Now, if the child is a Trihetuka Patisandhika, if the being is a Trihetuka Patisandhika, is being born during a time where a person is able to live, let us say 100 years, right? And having the three hetuka patisandhi would also sort of deem that the child has merit, right? However, such a child could have then coming into a position where the child would sort of lose his life, or the child's life could be most probably akala marana. Akala marana, right? Because, for example, if we sort of also think about the story where um, what's the gatha? I think Akasata, right? Right? The passing of merits. No, which one? Where the Hatdavase Dane came into, the 7 day. Is it the 7 day? No, 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 it's not the 7 day. Which is the story? After 7 days of being born, the child, there was a Gatha. I think it was, yes, the passing of merit to the deities, right? Started with this child, where the child was going to pass within 7 days after being born, right? and the parents got to know this from soothsayers, and the parents were quite upset about all of this. Their newborn child is going to die within the lapse of 7 days or so. And they asked the soothsayers, what can we possibly do to keep that from happening, because the child is healthy. um, to the eye, it doesn't seem like the child has anything wrong with the child. But this was a karma. And the soothsayers say, we do not have an answer for you. Why, Bhavat Gautama, the Bhagava Gautama, is in the forest nearby. Why don't you pay a visit to him? He might have a solution. And then the Buddha says, and they go with quite an amount of desperation. They visit the Buddha, pay their respects, and they ask for a solution. And the Buddha says, on this specific day, which is before the lapse of the 6th day, or no, on the 7th day itself, to arrange a dana, that the Buddha, together with the retinue of monks, will visit their home for dana. And as the Buddha approaches the home, with the Buddha comes Sakra and the whole retinue of the Sangha, and also Brahmas and the high gods of the high heavens coming to listen, to knowing that the Buddha will preach,
When you give a dana, you must know this.
to listen to the Buddha. All of these sort of beings with great power comes, and in coming in sort of coming with the Buddha, and then the Buddha conducting the whole sort of the devotees offering and listen to Dhamma and all of that. They say that the karma which would have played out as Mara coming to take this child away or causing the death did not happen, or it kind of lapsed, right? So in that, it is a clear sign of akala marana. How do we know? Because trihetuka patisandhi, right? Trihetuka patisandhi, and being born at a time where the lifespan is present for a normal person, right? Lifespan is present. So with a child, there should be no reason, if it is a trihetuka patisandhi, right? And the life force is strong, the Janaka karma is strong, there should be no reason. There can be complications, of course, but this is, remember, the key word is, or the key sort of point is, the interruption or the disruption of the lifespan, or sorry, life faculty. That is it. You can get sick, you can catch a fever, there can be complications, but is this being going to die? Do you understand? That is the question. Is the life faculty going to be disrupted? That is what is in question. Is that clear, everyone? Yeah. So as we sort of go on, even through kala marana, akala marana, it all depends on whether there is a life force, whether there is merit to continue, right? And whether that merit is now being hindered by a karma, a disruptive karma, which is going to break the Janaka karma and cause the disruption of the life faculty. Is that clear? Any questions? Any questions, anyone? Is it clear? Okay. So during the time of meditation, right? Then we now know that marana, when we say marana in marana sati or marananusati, we are referring to the interruption of the life faculty, the jivita indriya, and this can happen in two ways mainly. Two ways. That's it. Timely death, untimely death. Timely death is of two types. When exhaustion of merit, right? Exhaustion of merit and the exhaustion of the lifespan. These two, right? Untimely death can happen through an interruption, or the Janaka karma is interrupted by a karma. Where assaults or with weapons or an accident or something of that sort can happen to interrupt the karma brought in through the previous Patisandhi karma. Right? Previous Patisandhi karma. Now, Devadatta could not create or could not kill the Buddha because the Buddha's Janaka karma is that strong. Right? The Buddha's Janaka karma is that strong. So Devadatta was unable to cause any sort of harm to the Buddha's lifespan. Right? To the Buddha's Jivitindra. Yes, Samantha.
Sorry, Bhante, could you just explain that bit about the Janaka karma? I got distracted and I missed that little bit.
Yes. So which part? What I was just saying.
You said something about the I think interruption. What exactly is the Janaka karma?
Janaka karma is the karma which is responsible for the life faculty, the life force. Right? It is because of the Janaka karma. It's one of the primary karmas or the forces present. This Janaka karma is what ensures life. Right? It is responsible for the continuation of life. Right? When the Janaka karma, so a disruption to the life faculty of the Jivita Indriya can also be spoken of in terms of being a disruption of the Janaka karma.
Right. Okay.
Right? Of the Janaka karma. What is the English word for Janaka karma? Does anyone remember the English word for Janaka karma? Reproductive karma. Reproductive karma. Right? So there are 4 types of karma. Janaka, Upastambaka, Upapidaka, Upagataka. Right? So Upagataka, Janaka, Upastambaka, Upapidaka, Upagataka. Right? Now, Janaka karma, what does it do? It determines, it is called reproductive karma, it determines the state of a person, whether it is in a good state or a bad state. It's a powerful karma. It is one of the primary karmas that determines the quality and the life itself that we live. Do you understand? The life that we live. Right? And anything that hinders that life, right? Anything that hinders that life hinders the life faculty. Is that clear, Samantha?
Wonderful.
Now, let me go a little bit more deeper, Samantha. What is the life? What are we relating to as the life we live? The present moment, right? The memory of the past, the memory of all the assumptions of the future, all are parts, bits and parts of the memory, of course. The memory is a part of the chitta. It's a feature, function of the chitta. The future is a feature of our craving. What do we actually have this present moment, right here, right now? This present moment is the life that we have. This life that I have, that you have, you and I have, we are able to determine what we do. This determination of what we do, which can be classified as decision, adimokka, decision, determines what our next moment will be. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Now, so there's suffering or the pleasure of our life. We can all be here, right? Now, let us say you have come here with the Dhamma Pipasa. What can I learn? I want to learn the Dhamma. What is Marananusati? Then you've come here. I'm just taking for an example. You've come here just because you don't. Let us say you didn't want to sort of other people knowing that you're missing the class. Let's say something like that. Stupid reason. Something like that. Now, if the second reason is the reason that you're here, you're going to be suffering through these 1.5 hours. You don't have much motivation, right? You must be kicking back and relaxing on a chair or an armchair. You know what I mean? But if you're here with Dhamma Pipasa, you're listening intentively, right? And you're going to get something out, a lot out of it in comparison to the person who is just listening because he's here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, that decision, where does it fall? This present moment.
The intention.
The intention of the present moment, because that intention can change. You might have come into the class because you wanted to protect face, but during the course of the class, you were like, oh, this is actually quite interesting. And now you change, isn't it? That can happen as well, right? Right?
Yeah.
And you find it quite interesting. So now you're intentively listening. That falls under what? Present moment. So the life that we actually have is the present. Because of our deluded tanha, we assume the past as me, myself, and I. But the past is gone, it cannot be changed. The future has not arisen as yet. Right? The future has not arisen as yet, and we do not know what the future will hold. But the future will surely hold something determined by what you do now. That now, so this, Samantha, think about the energy. The Janaka karma exists where? It exists.
Present moment awareness.
No. Not present moment awareness. Present moment.
Yes. Yeah.
In the present, right here, right now. Right? In the fact of the Janaka karma, in the fact of the Janaka karma creating rebirth, Patisandhi process, Chuti Chitta, after the Chuti Chitta, the Patisandhi process, birth consciousness, all of these processes, what was determined? Okay, I was born into a womb of a woman who had the capacity to feed me, to nourish me, who lived in a sanitary household with the basic necessities of life or even more comforts, right? Who was able to give me a comfortable upbringing. Lived in a location, a country, a town or city that had access to water, clean health, all of these things, all these facilities. conducive to a good standard of life, right? Good standard of life. That at that time of birth, that was determined. Do you understand? At that time of birth, that was determined. Right now, we are living. This decision that we make right here, right now, can be affected, or our decisions can affect what we are doing right here, right now, affect even the quality moving forward. Do you understand something? So, Janaka karma, the effects of Janaka karma is present within this present moment. Me more.
So is that why the wisdom has to be in this moment, the yonisa manasikara?
Exactly, and we are going to come into that, right? We
Yeah.
are going to come into that. That is why it is so important. So why are we working? Why are we so spending so much of time in discussing what is Marana, blah blah blah? It's because how can we truly embrace this reality
Mm.
without it becoming something which brings us into a position of depression if taken in a wrong manner, or with the ion samskara, a wrong attention. Do you understand? Right.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
Now, thank you, Samantha. Thank you for asking the question. Right. Now, we have Janaka Karma. Then we have Upastambhaka Karma. What is Upastambhaka Karma? Now, that is the merit, you see. To support this life, right? Upastambhaka karma supports, right? It's not strong enough to give rise on its own. Janaka karmas can arise on its own. Upastambhaka karmas cannot rise on its own. Do you understand? Is that clear? Upastambhaka karmas can only support. They can't do it alone. They can't arise on its own. So what does it support? It supports the Janaka karma. Do you understand? Right? It supports the Janaka karma. Right? So you have the Janaka karma to live a good life. The Upastambhaka karma supports that further. Now let us say you were born into a certain amount of comfort. This Upastambhaka karma enables or supports you to live a even better life, or to be able to have the mind to make the decisions necessary, to make the right choices in life that will allow you to have that level of comfort or more. Do you understand? Right? That is Upastambhaka karma. Right? Upastambhaka karma. Now, then we have Upapedaka karma. Upapedaka karma is counteractive karma. It interrupts, weakens, right, the fruition of reproductive of Janaka karma, basically. So the example, I'm just reading out of this. An example that is given here: a person with good birth may have ailments that prevents him to enjoy the bliss of that birth. Do you understand? Right? The bliss of that birth. Right? That is a Upapedaka karma. Right? Is a Upapedaka karma. Then we have Upaghataka karma. Destruction. These Upaghataka karmas are strong enough to oppose or even neutralize karmas. They can pose a direct threat to the Janaka karma. Upaghataka, they destroy. Do you understand? They destroy. That is what it does. Upaghataka karmas. So now what are we talking about? We are talking about Janaka karma. This is the life force, the life faculty, Janaka karma. Right? Janaka karma. In the Kala Marana, the supporting karmas are no more. What is that? The upastambhaka karmas are no more. Right? So what happens? The merit there, the merit that allows you to keep on continuing. Let us say the lifespan is 80, now you're 85. It's a supportive karma that is keeping you going. Right? That is no more. Now what happens? Kala marana can happen. Do you understand? Is that clear? Right? Now, but if an upagataka karma arises, right? And upagataka karma, what it does is it will destroy the janaka. How does upagataka karma come? Through assault, through an accident, right? Through a natural disaster, right? All of this, a natural disaster, you being there at that moment, causing, right? Having to go through that natural disaster that affects your life. That is how. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Any questions? Yes, Hemali?
And is there any chance by doing merits, can you expand the life force?
Oh.
I just want to ask.
By doing merit, can you expand the life force? By doing merit, can you expand the life force? Well, when you do merit, right, it will not come up as a Janaka karma, right? However, wait, let me think about this. If you do merit, can you live longer, basically?
Bhante, can I just ask you at this moment, while you're reflecting on this, now people, when they get a serious illness in Sri Lanka, they will release animals, they will not eat meat, they give, go to hospitals which are like cancer hospitals and give so that poor patients can get the treatment. And so they do this, what Himamadi was asking, they do merits like that, that will help other people who are dying to live more. They will release animals who have gone to the abattoir to be killed. They themselves will become vegetarians and not kill meat or things like that. So those kind of merits are done very frequently in Sri Lanka. So those, I would think, because you are giving life to others and you are not taking other people's lives, so I would feel that that would help if it is done with a good intention, not craving and hanging on to life, and not without tanna coming, but seeing it as a good thing to do, Bhante. I don't know. It's just my thoughts.
Yes.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes. Thank you, Dil. Now, what I was thinking was, okay, you do, for example, with the abattoir and these things that we do, we produce a good karma, right? We produce a good karma, and we produce a good karma, that is one, ourselves. In producing a good karma, what we will be producing essentially is a supportive karma. The supportive karma.
Yeah, upasambhava.
Yeah, upastambhaka karma.
Yeah.
Upastambhaka karma, if upagataka karma arises, whatever you do, if it is a powerful karma, right, you cannot. There is no coming away from it. But if you are experiencing, let us say, an illness that could potentially sort of disrupt life, right? An illness that could potentially disrupt life, that would most probably fall under upapidaka, right? A counteractive karma, a upapidaka karma, what it does is it weakens, interrupts, retards the fruition of reproductive karma, right? It weakens the reproductive karma. So if the janaka karma or the reproductive karma is not strong enough, right, then this could very well affect it. This is what, so then in terms of a person going through these life difficulties, what it is really would then be a upapedaka karma. When a person does abedana and these sorts of danas, what you're then sort of doing is you're developing supportive karmas, which further supports the janaka karma. In saying so, what that would then be is it could allow a person to face the challenges, the difficulties, the strides of health or whatever it is, and continue to live, right? But continue to live, right? However, can we extend the Janaka karma itself is where I'm thinking, right? Can it extend the Janaka if you're to live for this amount, or can we extend the Janaka karma itself? Well, okay, then what now pops into my mind is, okay, the Janaka karma need not be extended. It can be the continuation of the supportive karma that allows the further or the continued perseverance of the Janaka karma. Does that make sense? Right? So the supportive karma, the Janaka karma is present. The supportive karma comes into being, and because the supportive karma is present, the Janaka karma persists longer. Yeah. What would happen with the Upapedaka karma is, leda venama, we will get sick, and the sickness will persevere. It will endure for longer. The supportive karma in that instance, what it would do, it would help you recuperate and heal. Does that make sense, Hemali? Yeah? Yeah. So because
Yeah, is one.
yeah, so that is
Yeah.
why, because I was thinking, okay, does the Janaka karma really get affected? No, the Janaka karma need not be affected. What you need is a supportive karma. Right? The supportive karma, if the supportive karmas that you do are strong, then that will further support the Janaka karmas. Hence, the Janaka karma will persist. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, it is as if now, for example, we know, I mean, it is a fact. When you look at, for example, meditating monks, right? Let us say you take a meditating monk of 60 years of age, and you take a layman of 60 years of age who is living, with the strides of being a layman, right? What would happen, or what happened? I mean, you would see a physical difference between the 60-year-old meditating monk and the 60-year-old man. There is clearly a difference, right? Now, both of these characters are or can be characters who are Trihetuka Patisandhi results, right? Access to good food, all of that. But the practice now allows you to develop energies that allows life to carry on in such a graceful manner that aging even reduces, right? Because obviously the stresses of life is obviously lesser for a meditating monk who lives in a forest, right? The challenges in that sense that would then arise are lesser. Do you get what I mean? Right? So obviously those karmas that the monk does allows him, the kusala mind, the wholesomeness, the meditating, all of these things would allow this monk to now age slower. Yeah. So now the upastambhaka karma supporting the janaka karma, so the janaka karma persists, or it's able to be within a state of peak for a longer time in comparison to a person who does not have those similar karmas or supportive karmas happening or arising. Is that clear? Yeah. Any questions, anyone? Okay. Shall we move on? Okay. So then, what is, or what, how do we practice? How do we practice? When it comes to how do we practice? Okay. How do we practice? The first thing is going into a place where the Vishuddhimagga says that we should go into a place that has a solitary retreat, basically. So the Pali would be Aranyagatova, Rukkamulagatova, Sunyagaragatova, right? But in that essence, what we can understand is we go to a place where we can cultivate the mind with less disturbances, in a position where the vitarka or the thought filled mind මේ කැළඹිච්ච මනස නිසල ගතියකට පත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒ වාතාවරණයකට යෑම. Going into an environment where the mind can be within a state of calm and peace is the first. Right? Is the first. Now, is the first. Then the second is, right, where we look at death. Now the first thing is the location. Now if it is in your house, going into a place in your house that you can have some peace. Is that clear? Right? That you can have some peace where the mind can calm down. Put aside everything else. Be within the present moment. Not think about the responsibilities and duties, the past or the future, and just simply be within the present. The second is Yonsu Manasikara with relating Yonsu Manasikara relating to death, or approaching death through Yonsu Manasikara. That is the second and the most important, I would say. Right? Approaching death through Yonsu Manasikara. This is a dance. Right? This is a dance. How is this a dance? Finding yourself in a position where you are looking at death in a manner where it does not spring from fear, nor create fear resulting from greed, tanha. Right? Now, for example, when a mother is to recollect the death of a child, right? What arises? Sorrow arises, isn't it? If a mother is to think of the death of a child, sorrow will arise. So Yonsu Manasikara would be in such a manner, or should be in such a manner, that this sorrow does not arise. When in another sense, or in another position, recollecting the death of a person that they do not like at all, a disagreeable person, an enemy, right, might bring a sense of gladness of that person's demise. That too should not happen. Do you understand? Right? Now, in saying so, realize that the Vanchaka Dharmas can also play a part here. Huh? Because sometimes when it comes to disagreeable persons, we might have, or we might spur out more Dhamma, because of the sense of disattachment there. Do you get what I mean? Now, we don't really care that this person has passed because we didn't like this person in the first place, right? We assumed this person to be a scar in samsara itself. Maybe to that extent, because usually even if it is a person that you don't really like, at times of death we sympathize, right? So it should be a person that you really do not like, right? Really do not like. Now, sometimes in occasions such as this, we even kind of like spur, oh, so things are impermanent, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Now we use the Dhamma, or we bring in the Dhamma, we think that, okay, there's this sort of righteousness. But this is not arising, that Dhamma sharing is not righteous. It's weak. It's olarikai, heenai, potujjanakai, anaryai. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah? That. So we have to be aware of the Vanchaka Dharma here too. Right? Of a disagreeable person. Because sometimes, I mean, we are such liars. Right? We might not essentially lie to people. Right? We might not break the precepts. But we lie to ourselves. That is where, unknowingly, අපි දන්නෙත් නැහැ. Right? So now I'm talking Dhamma, but I'm talking Dhamma not in a righteous manner, in a very ignoble manner. Do you understand? So we have to be attention. We have to have a little bit of attention towards this as well. So for a mother to contemplate the death of her child will bring sadness. For a person to contemplate the death of an enemy will bring gladness. For a person to contemplate the death or to look at the death, right? Look at the death of a person who is, neutral, right? No sense of urgency, without any sense of urgency, just a neutral person. Now, for example, a person who's working at a crematorium, right? He would just sort of put bodies in and burn. It's his job. He's seen 100, he's done 1,000, right? It doesn't mean anything to him. A person who works in an embalming parlor, or a person who is a mortician, or a doctor who deals with these kind of scenarios, right? Now, it doesn't really mean anything. Like a neutrality, right? Death, neutral. I mean, we see it every day, something like that. That is also that neutrality, right? Where this is important, but it's not the neutrality, huh? It's the sense that the death does not bring a sense of urgency. That's it. Do you understand? Now, for in many occasions, especially I have some very close families where these doctors are judicial JOMOs, judicial medical officers who deal with a lot of dead bodies, who do the sort of examining and all of that. They would sort of very proudly sort of say, oh, but I deal with dead bodies, or see, doctors deal with asubha on a daily basis, isn't it? Right? If you're dealing with, but then you don't have any sense of urgency. This is work. You see it every day. This is what you're trained to do, right? Now that is not disattachment, right? That is your training, your programming. In Marananusati, now this is important, huh? In that sense, Marananusati does not happen if you don't have a sense of urgency. If you don't have a sense of urgency, it doesn't need it necessarily need not be where you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of samsara, that kind of thing. You don't need to be so excited about it. But යම් කිසි විදියට මේක නේද සංසාරේ. මේ සංසාරේ මෙවැනි තැනක් නේද කියලා පොඩි හරි මට්ටමකින් යම් කිසි විතර්කයක් අපිට ඇති වෙනවා නම් ඒ දේ තමයි යම් කිසි විදියට අර යෝනිසමනසිකාරයට එන්නේ. තේරුණාද? I said it in single because I thought that would be clearer, right? Some sort of urgency. It need not be, because when we use the word urgency, it's quite a big word, right? It's not anything like, oh my gosh, sansara, harima bayankara, mangil pavidwin. It's not that sort of a thing. Some people might have that, but it need not be that all the time. යම් කිසි විදියකට මේ සංසාරේ තියෙන දුක යම් කිසි විදියකට මෙන්න මේ දේෙන් අපිට පොඩ්ඩක් හරි උලුප්පලා පේනවා නම් ඒ දේ තමයි අපි එතන යම් කිසි විදියට එතන යෝනිසමනස්කාරය තියෙනවා. Is that clear? Right? A sense of urgency must be present. Okay? Sense of urgency must be present. There shouldn't be a sense of lack of urgency. Samvega, the word is samvega. Samvega should arise. To whatever extent. And then, a person who recollects their own death would have anxiety, right? Would have anxiety. Why? I'm having to, everything that I want to do will be disturbed. A sense of anxiety. My gosh, do you understand? Is that clear, everyone? These 4 things. As a mother, I'm going to repeat it. As a mother looks upon the death of her own child, sadness arises. In contemplating death, as a meditator, sadness should not arise. Right? When we look upon or contemplate the death of a foe, an enemy, gladness might arise. Such emotion should not arise. As we contemplate or as we look upon death of a person who is neutral, who is not known to us, with no sense of urgency, to a meditator, death should not be contemplated without urgency. Yeah, samvega should arise. To whatever level, samvega should arise. Yes? And then the final is contemplating our own demise might bring about a sense of anxiety. Such anxiety should not arise. Is that clear, everyone? These are the 4 dangers in contemplate, or rather not the dangers. These are the 4 aspects that one should avoid when approaching a mind of meditating upon death. Is that clear? Yeah. How do we maneuver it? We will discuss next week. Okay? Good. Hari. So any questions before we close the session?
Yes, Bhante, as usual. Can I know the exact meaning of Samvega in English, please?
Samvega
With
is
urgency.
No, urgency.
Urgency. Samvega. A sense of movement, a moving emotion.
Emotion, I would think.
Huh?
Emotion, I thought, actually. Emotions.
No.
Samvega, I thought you are emotional or something like
That would be dosa. That's the exact opposite of samvega. That is friction.
those.
Yes, that is dosa. Now, for example, when a person cries, crying, the act of crying doesn't come about with pain. It comes about with anger. Dosa. Right? The dosa that arises, the anger that arises as a strong friction opposing the pain. But the emotion behind the crying is anger, you see. Right? So it is not emotion. Because sometimes example, our huts can have samvega, right? Where, for example, say, for example, when they hear the Buddha saying, "Moga Purisa, what are you doing?" You know, it to arouse a sense of samvega. What are you doing? Right? But that is not taken as an emotion. Sometimes it can be more emotionless, right? But there is a sense of මේ සසරේ තියෙන භයංකාර ගතිය තව අපිට යම් කිසි විදිහට උලුප්පල පෙන්වන ගතියක් එතන තියෙනවා. Right? It need not be with emotion or it's not with emotion filled as we might sort of think it is. You know what I mean? Right? But we will discuss about that next time. Because I feel like when we come into these positions, especially even with metta, right? Even with metta, sometimes when we assume ourselves in a position above people, it's easy to have metta towards people. You know what I mean? When we assume that we are superior, maybe in a state of mind, maybe in quality of life, it's easier. Right? But that is not exactly what metta is. Do you understand? So we will discuss that. एक अभी कथा करूँ next time Sujata deeply. Okay?
Yes, I'm still thinking.
Samvega. It is not emotion. It is a sense of urgency. Urgency about what? Urgency about exiting, gaining deliverance from samsara. Okay? Not because we hate it so much, because we realize the reality of what this is. Okay? We'll discuss more about it next time. Okay?
Thank you, Saranai.
Buddha Saranai. Hare. Okay, so we have a couple. Lakshman.
No, Bhante, I just
Where have
I
you been,
enjoyed.
Lakshman? We have been missing you.
Yes, it some of it was too much for me, you know. Patana, that thing was a bit too much.
Okay. Okay. So, Lakshman, what's your question?
No question. I just to say thank you very much, Bhante. It was very useful.
Ane. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Lakshman. So sweet. All right. Yes, Brenda.
Sadhu, very useful. I
Okay.
was listening to the whole thing. It's
Lovely.
so
Lovely to have you, Brenda. Thank you.
okay. It was nice.
All right, everyone. So then, good night and have a wonderful rest of the evening. I will see you all tomorrow morning. And when you do come for your meditation, please do bring your score counters. Okay? Right? Take care and good night. Theravada.
Good night,
Saranai,
Bhante.
Saranai.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.